So, dear participants, distinguished guests, and students, it is a great honor to welcome you all to this important webinar organized under the framework of UNESCO Ocean Decade, Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. Today, we gather as a global community, scientists, educators, policymakers, and students united by a shared commitment to protecting and sustainability, managing our planet's most vital and dynamic ecosystem, the ocean. Oceans cover more than 70% of our planet's surface, regulating climate, sustaining biodiversity, and providing food and cultural heritage for billions of people. Yet they are facing some problems such as climate change, pollution, habitat destruction that endanger not only marine life, but also human societies that depend on ocean health. The United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development is a call to action. It challenges us to advance transformative ocean science, foster interdisciplinary collaboration, and bridge the gap between research and policy to create healthier, sustainable ocean for future generations. This decade is not just about generating knowledge, it is about using that knowledge to drive meaningful change. So, first, thank you very much for being part of this webinar. Unfortunately, the president of INOC couldn't participate this webinar because of the last minute meeting in the university. But she sent her best wishes for a successful and productive webinar. So we can start to our webinar. I would like to introduce first speaker, who is Nicolo Bassan from UNESCO. But before listening his presentation, I would like to give you some information about his academic background. Nicolo is science officer at the Intergovernmental Oceanography Commission of UNESCO, serving on the coordination team of the United Nations Decade on Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. He is a multidisciplinary ocean expert with extensive experience in management of ocean-related projects, contribution to European Union and international projects, technical consultancies, and support to national authorities. In his previous role at the UN Environment Programme, he worked in integrating observing systems to support policy making to conserve, restore, and properly manage coastal and marine ecosystems. Passionate about all ocean-related activities, Nicolo is dedicated to advancing ocean sustainability. Nicolo, floor is yours, and we are looking forward to listening your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invite, and I'm very happy and honored of being here to explain quickly what the Ocean Decade is about on its main frameworks, and how also member states and the broader scientific community can engage within the Ocean Decade. So,
Nicolo, I forget to mention something. I would like to inform all participants that we will collect all your questions using this Zoom chat box. Please write your questions to the Zoom chat box. At the end of two presentations, we will ask these questions to our distinguished speakers, and we expect to answer these questions. So please go on, Nicolo. I am sorry for interrupting again.
No problem, absolutely, and thank you for clarifying this. Just to give you a quick overview of the Ocean Decade and its structures, as you might know, the Ocean Decade, which is in brief the name of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, is one of the most significant coordinated effort of within the UN framework for ocean science and sustainability. And it's the biggest movement on ocean science coordinated by a UN agency. And of course, it focuses on achieving the SDG 14, so the Sustainable Development Goal 14, but also beyond that and contributing to the other SDGs by 2030. The decade was launched in 2021 after 2 years of consultations, since it was approved by the UN General Assembly in 2017. And we are currently at the midterm of the decade, and for also this reason, we are currently undergoing a midterm evaluation in which we're trying to understand also how to steer the decade and achieve most as much as possible from it by the end of 2030. From the slide, you can see the vision of the decade, which is the science we need for the ocean we want, and its mission, which is transformative ocean science solutions for sustainable development, connecting people and our ocean. The decade, of course, it's a very complex ecosystem, I would say. It needs to coordinate many different moving parts and programs, projects, and different also coordination structures. As I was mentioning, the UN General Assembly mandated, together with member states, IOC, so UNESCO's Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, to lead the decade. But it's always good to remember that it's a UN-wide decade. It's not just an IOC focused and led program. So within IOC, we are in the Decade Coordination Unit, which serves as the secretariat of the decade. And we need to actually, of course, respond to the member states and to the General Assembly. Within the decade, there are also other UN agencies collaborating with IOC UNESCO to actually steer the decade, and we have a decade advisory board with experts from all around the world that support the decade coordination unit in steering its activities. You can see then below all the different parts of the governance system of the decade. And you can see there's from the advocacy and resource mobilization part, we have a Decade Alliance, in which different philanthropic foundations are gathered, but also some ambassadors and representatives from member states. We have some informal working groups on mostly working on subject matter expertise and connections. We have the core of the decade, which are the endorsed actions, which are composed from programs, projects, contributions, and activities. We have the coordination and implementation, which is made up of decade collaborative centers, decade coordination offices, decade implementing partners, national decade committees, and other regional task forces and programs. We have a specific facility for capacity development, and we've been doing in the last couple of years also the strategic planning and revision of the decade through the Vision 2030 process. We'll talk about this in detail in the next slides. As you might know, the decade is based on the 10 challenges, which encapsulates all the main challenges that our ocean face. We go from challenge number 1, which is understand and beat marine pollution, to, for example, challenge number 2, and protect and restore ecosystem and biodiversity, and so on and so forth, till arriving to challenge number 10, which is restore society's relationship with the ocean. These challenges also were revised during the Vision 2030 process, and these were selected in the 2 years of preparation of the decade through different regional coordination events, consultations with stakeholders, right holders, with youth, so ECOPs, and also representatives from underrepresented regions. Just to give you an idea of where the challenges, where the actions, where the outcomes are placed, this is the Ocean Decade. It's a snapshot of the Ocean Decade framework. And the scope of the decade, of course, is to move from the ocean we have with its issues and challenges to the ocean we want. To do this, of course, we need to understand the science we need, and decade actions are a fundamental building block to understand this and to work towards achieving the challenges of the decade and reaching the outcomes. So, as I was mentioning, the decade endorsed actions are categorized between programs, projects, activities, and contributions, which differ in their characteristics, and we'll talk about it later. And work towards achieving those challenges that we just mentioned in the previous slide. The challenges, of course, then are meant to push the scientific community in reaching the outcomes of the decade for a clean ocean, a healthy ocean, a productive, predicted, safe ocean, and so on and so forth. So just to give you an idea and contextualize also the decade framework in during this presentation. When we talk about decade and we talk about ocean science, it's important to understand that the notion of ocean science within decade is a broader a broader notion of ocean science. It encapsulates all types of knowledge and science that could be used also to drive action and to drive policymaking and to support member states in achieving those results. And this is also translated in the approach of involving all of society within the decade. So besides, of course, scientists, but national and local governments, philanthropies, NGOs, the private sector through industry and investors, but also educators. So the social science part of marine sciences, the indigenous and local knowledge holders, local communities, other UN agencies, regional organizations, and of course, early career ocean professionals. Within the decade, right now, this is a snapshot of how many endorsed actions and engagement and outreach we're currently having within a decade. We have almost 60 global programs endorsed within a decade, more than 460 projects, and numerous activities and contributions. These decade actions are led by partners from 69 countries, and you can see on the bottom left of the slide also the endorsed actions per challenge. And so where we have more representations of actions dealing with specific challenges. For what concerns the coordination, we have currently 11 decade collaborative centers or coordination offices. We have 18 decade implementing partners, and we have 39 national decade committees established. We also have 6 regional task forces and global programs that are working towards the implementation of the decade. We have, of course, a big online community with colleagues from the comms team, which are working tirelessly to actually communicate all the information coming from the decade and coming from the endorsed actions, of course, and trying to connect also the different programs and projects within the decade between each other, but also with the broader scientific community. This to give you a picture of the decade in itself and how it's the biggest coordinated ocean science initiative ever undertaken by a UN agency. I just mentioned the Vision 2030 process. This was a year and a half process in which 10 different working groups worked on the 10 challenges to identify what the strategic ambition for those challenges could be and how we could also measure success at the end of the decade in understanding if we reach those challenges, how much we work towards those challenges, and what could be done better. So this process was ended last year in June 2024 with the publication of 10 white papers on the 10 challenges, and you can see them here on the left side of the slide. So these 10 white papers were authored by 10 expert working groups in which more than 150 experts were involved. And the middle report that you see there, the Ambition Action Impact Report, is a summary and an additional analysis from the Decade Coordination Unit on the work of the Vision 2030 process. And the key elements coming from this process are the refinement of the challenges, as I was mentioning, identify also some priorities by challenges in which Decade should work on, but also priorities across the challenges and any cross-cutting issues. Sorry. As I was mentioning, the Decade, of course, I sit within the Decade Coordination Unit, but coordinating such a big effort needs also a decentralized structure of coordination. And that's why we have decentralized Decade coordination centers, which are usually hosted by an international or major regional non-UN organization, which provide technical support to the Decade Coordination Unit by catalyzing and coordinating Decade actions at the regional or thematic level. So eventually in relation to specific Decade challenges. We have then Decade coordination offices, which are decentralized coordination structures located in an existing UN or IOC member state structure. And the DCO, of course, support and collaborate closely with the DCU, Decade Coordination Unit, and act again as regional or thematic subunits of the DCU. We have then Decade implementing partners, which are usually stakeholder institutions, networks, or groups. They're committed to the vision and the mission of the Decade and are supporting the Decade through the implementation of specific tasks and the alignment of strategic priorities and work programs to the Decade priorities. The core responsibilities of these three decentralized structures is to support, endorse programs in their management and in their also coordination between different programs. It's to engage stakeholders within their regions or their topics, to catalyze new Decade actions, to fill any relevant gaps that were identified, but also to carry out communication activities, mobilize resources for the Decade actions, and contribute, of course, to monitoring and evaluation and to capacity development. Currently, as I was mentioning before, we have these decentralized structured currently active, and you can see on the bottom side the ones that are still in progress to be formed. And for example, we have the Decade Collaborative Center for Ocean Climate Nexus and coordination among Decade implementing partners in the Republic of the Popular Republic of China. Sorry, we have the Ocean Vision UN Decade Collaborative Center for Ocean Climate Solution, which unfortunately closed recently, and we're looking for an alternative hosting institution. There's the Decade Collaborative Center for Coastal Resilience, the Decade Coordination Office on Ocean Observing, and so on and so forth. So you can see how many Decade decentralized structures are currently active or established, and the ones that are in progress, such as the Decade Collaborative Center on Challenge 4, so develop a sustainable and equitable ocean economy, and Decade Collaborative Center on the Mediterranean Sea. Besides these more regional and topic-based decentralized structures, there are also national Decade committees, which are voluntary, inclusive platforms that coordinate and enhance national participation in the Ocean Decade, mostly by mobilizing local and regional and global ocean communities. But they play a fundamental role in connecting the global challenges and objectives of the Decade with their national priorities and their local issues. So they're key players within the Ocean Decade ecosystem. And again, they strengthen connection between the local and global actors. Of course, they work to facilitate collaboration, to share Ocean Decade opportunities, such as data sharing, science policy initiatives, capacity building, ocean literacy, and more, and connect the stakeholders within their scope of work, of course. They engage with the Decade Coordination Unit, with other NDCs, with the collaborative centers, the coordination offices, and are, of course, usually coordinating with all these systems with support from Decade Coordination Unit. Currently, these are the national Decade committees that are currently supporting the Ocean Decade, and we're still missing some a good part of the global south, of course, and we're working towards that in establishing more national Decade committees to ensure that the broader community is engaged and involved within the Ocean Decade. But what are the benefits? Let's start from the benefits, and then we can move to the responsibilities of National Decade Committee. Well, of course, the key benefits, it's that it amplifies national voices because it strengthens the country's role in shaping global ocean science and governance by supporting the Ocean Decade and the broader scientific community. It advances ocean knowledge and supports marine and climate science, innovation, and sustainable solution in strengthening connections. So in connecting researchers, national researchers, policymakers, industry, and civil society for collective impact. Leveraging funding and support. So it can facilitate access to resources and partnerships, enhancing ocean literacy and engaging national citizens and national stakeholders in the process of the Ocean Decade, but also in understanding and protecting the ocean, and of course aligning with global goals. So contributing to SDG 14 and the Ocean Decade vision, the science we need for the ocean we want by 2030. What are the responsibilities of NDCs? Well, most NDCs are responsible for facilitating collaboration, so coordinating national and regional stakeholders across different spectrum of topics and expertise. In coordinating, of course, also the projects, the endorsed projects within their national boundaries. So projects focusing on a specific nation are supported by the national decade committees. Of course, supporting implementation and encouraging and aligning national initiatives with the Ocean Decade priorities, raising awareness, so through ocean literacy and engagement, through outreach, education, and advocacy, providing, of course, feedback and strategic guidance to the Ocean Decade and the Decade Coordination Unit, but also track progress, showcase national contributions, and share best practices globally. Within this, of course, several initiatives are being developed. For example, the guidance for developing national ocean science action plans, which is a guidance document that provides practical guidance to member states in developing these plans that align with the global ocean science priorities at the national level. This is based, of course, from the outcomes of the Barcelona statement, so from the UN Ocean Conference in Barcelona last year, and the Vision 2030 process, including the 10 white papers. So in this case, the support of NDCs is fundamental to actually scale down the international priorities and the international frameworks, understand also the needs from member states in terms of marine management, marine sciences, ocean sciences. Another important initiative is the integration of ocean science into national biodiversity strategies and action plans. And so the push also from the decade is to include ocean science to ensure nature positive and climate smart national strategies. Ocean-based considerations must be included within national biodiversity strategies and action plans. And this is done in collaboration, of course, with the CBD Secretariat. So some key actions that are needed for integration would be to incorporate ocean indicators into national adaptation plans for better alignment and tracking, securing resources, of course, to actually support member states in these efforts, and strengthen coordination between different frameworks from at an international, regional, and national level, including, all, of course, UNFCCC and its targets, and the national determined contributions and national adaptation plan. So as a quick summary, how can you participate in Decade? Of course, you can participate by submitting a Decade activity. So you can submit your idea or concept or your ongoing project, program, and initiative for a Decade activity anytime. So for Decade activities specifically, sorry, so not programs and projects, but just Decade activities, it's on a rolling basis, and you can submit that anytime. So if you have an event, a workshop, a publication, an exhibition, a conference, or training opportunities, you can submit that to the Ocean Decade team for endorsement. But you can take part also in calls for Decade actions. So you can participate in our calls for Decade actions, which are organized twice a year, and submit your idea for a Decade program, projects, or contributions. Contributions, of course, includes also eventually Decade coordination centers and Decade collaborative offices and Decade implementing partners. You can join also a community of practice and engage with partners and work together on similar topics to co-design solutions and share best practices. And of course, you can establish a national Decade committee to facilitate national engagement with the Ocean Decade and the broader ocean science community. So maybe I'll stop here, and then I can jump in later for any further question. I'll leave this just 1 second to share with you the common email address, the usual email address, which is oceandecade@unesco.org. And of course, to invite you to visit our website to learn more on the Ocean Decade. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nicola, for this very nice and informative presentation. I believe that this presentation and information that you gave in this webinar will shed a light to all participants in here to get more information about Ocean Decade. I believe that they will contact with you or with your colleagues in UNESCO to get more information. Thank you once again for your presentation. So the second presenter is Dr. Teresa Kennedy from the United States of America. But before her presentation, I would like to give you information that if you have any question, you can send them your questions using Zoom chat box. At the end of Teresa's presentation, we will ask your questions to our distinguished speakers. So the next speaker is, as I said, Dr. Teresa Kennedy. Before her presentation, I would like to give you some information about her academic background. Dr. Teresa Kennedy is a professor at the University of Texas at Tyler, ICAST representative to UNESCO, and co-chair of the UNESCO Ocean Decade NGO Task Group. An active marine scientist and certified PADI dive master, she has spent over 90 days at the sea on research cruise and has participated in international marine engineering projects. With master's degree in Oceanography from the Rhode Island and PhD in STEM education from the University of Idaho, She bridged scientific research, education, and policy. A three times Fulbright scholar and former deputy director of NASA Globe program, she has led science education initiatives in more than 100 countries. Passionate about ocean literacy and sustainability, Dr. Kennedy works to strengthen global understanding of the ocean as a single interconnected system and is currently leading a designated Ocean Decade activity that has brought together more than 250 ocean literacy experts across 40 nations. So, Teresa, floor is yours. I am really looking forward to listening your presentation.
Thank you very much, Bulent, for that kind introduction.
Shall
Are you
I-
able to
Shall
are
I?
you able to hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. If you could put my presentation up on the screen, I'll go ahead and begin.
Is it
I
now
have
on the screen?
I can see it now. Thank you very much. I have to warn everyone that I'm right now on the west coast of the United States, and we're under a gale warning. So we have high winds and quite a storm happening. So please forgive the background noise that you're probably going to hear during my presentation. At any rate, as Bulent stated, I'm at the University of Texas at Tyler. You can see the small map at the bottom of the screen that shows where Tyler is. And then if you move over to the left, clear over to Oregon, you'll see the West Coast where I'm actually coming to you this morning. So Bulent, if you'll move to the next slide. Thank you. So Nicolo's presentation was so informative and talked about a lot of the activities and formal structures that are happening under the Ocean Decade. I come into this as an NGO. I represent the International Council of Associations for Science Education, where both Bulent and I have served up as past presidents of that organization. And as a part of my role as representative to UNESCO, I was asked to serve as co-chair of the Ocean Decade Task Group that created a manual for NGOs to help them understand the decade and become involved at a higher level. And so I wanted to share this resource with you first. You can see the URL at the bottom of the screen, because the Ocean Decade activity that I'm currently working on uses this manual as a platform, a foundational structure of what we're trying to get across in the book that we're working on. Bulent, if you could move to the next slide, please. So the task group consisted of 18 NGOs spanning 14 countries and 5 regions, and their role was basically trying to translate what's happening in the Ocean Decade. And our work now that we have the publication is to disseminate and get this information out for the second part of the Ocean Decade to increase activity across civil society, including all NGOs and governments that they are working with. And so if you'll move to the next slide, Bulent, I can show you just a few pieces of information that can be found inside this resource. There is a code that you can connect to with your phone if you'd like. However, what the primary access of this activity that we engaged in, which was to create this manual, is showing how we can co-design transformative ocean science, but with everybody working together, all sectors of civil society. And we highlighted 5 exemplars within the manual, and we're hoping right now to continue identifying exemplars that are occurring across the world and create an additional manual. If you'll move to the next slide, Bulent, please. So another primary resource that we have tapped into with the current activity that we are working on, Nicolo explained a little bit about the white papers, and we are focusing on white paper 10, Challenge 10, which is restoring society's relationship with the ocean. And so this publication, along with the Ocean Decade Manual for NGOs, are serving as the foundational platforms of an Ocean Decade activity that we are currently working on. Bulent, if you can go to the next slide, please. So we've just learned that we have been designated as an Ocean Decade activity, and we have a 3-volume publication that is entitled Ocean Literacy, the Foundation for the Success of the Ocean Decade. And it is focusing on Challenge 10. It uses the 2 resources that I just highlighted for you as its primary foundation. And I tried to list for you quickly what you might find across the 3 volumes. Volume 1 is working with transforming education, research, and engagement. We have 21 chapters, 90 authors across 19 countries. And I'm happy to say that our host today and his team have a chapter that's in volume 1, which is unbelievable. So we're very excited. Our goal is to have volume 1 of this 3-volume project ready for the Ocean Decade meeting in Nice. And so that's our goal. We're not sure if we'll make it to the finish line in time for the conference, but it will be out very soon thereafter. Volume 2 is focusing on fostering community, the blue economy, and the arts. Again, there are 21 chapters, 57 authors are included in this volume, spanning, oops, I don't think I got the countries on there. Wait, we'll go back up. We'll talk about volume 3 real quick. And this also is talking about accelerating communications, technology, and global initiatives. Again, we have another 21 chapters. So you can see that the book consists of 63 chapters, with ocean experts across the countries, the nations, and regions. It is a very, very global publication. So if you can move to the next slide. One more resource that I'd like to provide for you, and I realize we're running a little short on time, I'll try to speed up, is just a few weeks ago, the National Science Teaching Association and the National Marine Educators Association here in the US announced a joint position paper that I was part of the writing team on. And it is highlighting the Ocean Decade and marine education and really, really drilling down into ocean literacy. And so I recommend that you take a look at it. It really helps to explain a point of what teachers are aiming to do with marine education, which is to help students overcome terrestrial bias and not immediately return back to land as a means of saving our planet, but looking into our oceans. So next slide, please, Bulent. That's all I have for you. I just wanted to share a few resources for you and give some examples of what Nicolo was talking about in his presentation. I appreciate the time to speak with you, and I just want to close on one statement that is my very favorite from Jacques Cousteau from a long time ago, which is so relevant to us today, that the ocean is a source of life and inspiration for the future. Let's educate to protect it. So as science educators, it is up to us to help the next generation understand the importance of the ocean. So with that, I say thank you very much for the time, and thank you, Bulent.
You have one more slide, but that's all right.
The last slide was just to say that we are very excited to have been designated as an Ocean Decade activity.
Okay. Thank you very much, Teresa, for your presentation and your book information. I believe that this book will really help us to understand ocean and ocean-related topics. So I, as an author, really looking forward to receiving and holding the book as a physical book. So I believe that we can do it in France, in Nice. So thank you once again for your presentation. And before closing my screen, I would like to present the appreciation certificate. Thank you very much, Nicolo, for your contribution to Inter-Islamic Network on Oceanography. And I would like to thank to Teresa Kennedy for her very nice and informative presentation. So I can stop sharing my screen and look at the Zoom chat box if there is any question. I see that there is no question. It seems that the presentations are very clear and crystal clear. So maybe I can ask a question to you. In here, we have students from Faculty of Education, Faculty of Maritime, and Institute of Marine Science and Technology. Maybe I can ask a question on behalf of them. If they want to continue their education or continue their research on marine-based issues, let's say a student graduated from Faculty of Education, how can start his or her academic career or master or PhD education? Is there any opportunity to use Ocean Decade program? If they so, how can they start? So this question to goes both of you.
Maybe I can kick off on this. Well, thank you first of all for the question. It's really relevant. I think there's of course a lot of opportunities out there. So I think it's very important to state that there are many different organizations within the Ocean Decade, but also broadly in the scientific community that are working on several aspects of ocean science. So on all the possible array of subtopics in ocean science. I think there are many opportunities, especially for young people and recently graduated, because luckily there was a shift also in terms of engagement between in different international organizations in the need of involving also the younger generation in the process of developing and co-designing projects and programs, but also in developing, of course, and supporting policymaking, because what we're working on today will be left to the next generation. So it's important that the young voices are also heard strongly within these frameworks. What I could suggest, and I'll also link it in the chat, is to engage with the Early Career Ocean Professional Program, which is a network of early career ocean professionals. And in this way, you get connected with peers that work on different disciplines on the ocean realm. And you build your own network, you collaborate on specific projects, so that you have also some experience to sell during your future applications and future job applications. So I think I'll stop here for this question.
Thank you, Nicolo. Any comments, Teresa, about?
Absolutely. I would like to echo what Nico said about looking into the activities of the ECOPs, and I think that is the best starting point there is, because they have such an amazing global network, and they can connect you to exactly your area, what you're interested in. The ECOP network is amazing. And then I'll place in the chat a link to the Ocean Decade Manual for NGOs. This manual provides a lot of examples and resources about how to connect to broader civil society. So outside of just looking at the university level or scientific level, but looking into all across civil society. So I would recommend that you take a look at that manual, and hopefully the book that we'll hopefully have ready by June we'll have additional ideas and show some different programs that you may be interested in as well. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your answers about my question. So it seems that there is no other questions from the participants. So we can slowly close our webinar. I would like to thank each of you for your valuable contribution to our webinar. Your dedication according to your presentation to ocean science and sustainability is truly inspiring. So thank you once again, and we would like to see you at our next webinars. And I would like to also thank to all participants who attended to our webinar today. So again, as I said, we would like to see you again at our future webinars organized by our universities, our organization. So thank you and have a nice holidays. If you are living in Turkey, there will be 1 week holiday in Turkey. So have a nice weekend, have a nice holiday. So I think this is the end of our webinar. I can officially close the webinar. Thank you very much once again for your participation. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.